Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I'm back. It's good to be back. All right, happy Sunday. There's a spy war going on between China and the US. Each country is engaging in an active counterintelligence or counterespionage effort against its opponent. And the person at the center of that is the Chinese spy named Fang Fang. So today, I'm going to share with you a lot of information regarding this spy war. So stay until the end. There's a lot of information to be shared today. So you might remember 3 years ago, on December 8th, 2020, the American media Axios published an article that reports on a Chinese intelligence operation targeting American politicians. And the person at the center of that operation is a suspected spy whose name is Fang Fang. Through campaign fundraising, extensive networking, personal charm, romantic and sexual relationships, she was able to gain proximity to American political power. And the most famous person implicated is Congressman Eric Swalwell from California, who sat on the House Intelligence Committee. So from 2011 to 2015, Fang Fang, whose name is also Christine Fang, was very active in the political circles of California. She extended her reach nationally by focusing on American mayors conference or conferences. So Axios reported that she had sexual relations with at least two American mayors. So she was a student at California State University, East Bay, and she served as the president of the Chinese Student Association and president of the campus chapter of an Asian American national association called Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs, or APAPA. She used these roles to gain access to politicians. Now, after the FBI started an investigation on her, so in 2015, she fled to China. Last Wednesday, she reappeared in public. She had lunch with Hu Xijin, the former chief editor of the Global Times, a CCP English mouthpiece, who is known for singing praises to the regime. He posted a picture. I actually have a picture. This is the Axios report from 2020. Here's the post. Here's actually a picture with Miss Fang. So who is he wrote a piece and published the piece. He posted the piece on Chinese Weibo and also X. I found what he wrote very interesting and valuable. Now, he portrayed Fang Fang as a beautiful and capable woman who was successful in the United States. But he was not shy in sparing details about her life. And all of those details prove to us that she was indeed a spy. And what's more interesting to me is why CCP tells Fang Fang's story all of a sudden now. I think it has to do with the current spy war between China and the US. So today I will share with you the information in 3 segments. First, I'll talk about what's said in whose post. And then we'll talk about why do we say Fang Fang is indeed a professional spy. She's not just a spy, she's a professional spy. And last but not least, we'll talk about why Beijing wants to bring up Fang Fang all of a sudden now. So here's the picture taken from his post. It was taken from the lunch. Now let me read you a verbatim translation of what he wrote, because I think that's the most accurate way of telling you how he described about Fang Fang, or that's the most accurate way of telling you how the information was presented by the Chinese. So his post, the title is "I met with this beautiful Chinese spy." Of course, the Chinese spy was in quote. So I'll read you the verbatim translation. So this is what he wrote. He said, "I had lunch with this beautiful woman today." That's March 13th. "Her name is Fang Fang, and few Chinese people know her or know about her. However, in the US, she was known as a Chinese spy and was thrust into the spotlight when her name appeared in hot search lists at least 24 times. Donald Trump repeatedly called out Fang Fang or Fan Fan, I think in an American pronunciation, when Trump criticized the Democrats. Fang Fang graduated from the University of International Relations in Beijing and worked as a flight attendant for 7 years before coming to the US in 2009 to study. By a mere chance, she met Eric Swalwell, a young American who is a Democrat, and became friends with him. She helped him raise funds in the Chinese community and lent a helping hand in his successful campaign to run for the Congress. From then on, she gradually established a wide network of contacts in the US. She showed me a photo of herself with Nancy Pelosi. Here's the picture. These two pictures were posted by Mr. Hu. So this is what he wrote. He said she showed me a photo of herself with Nancy Pelosi. She facilitated a lot of exchanges between China and the United States during those years, such as arranging for members of Congress to meet with Chinese delegations and helping Chinese students intern in Congress, in US Congress. In 2015, the CIA and FBI approached her separately, asking for her cooperation. The FBI used both coercion and incentives, offering her U.S. citizenship and $1 million to have her work for them, or they would quote unquote destroy her. I'm still reading the verbatim translation from Hu. Her residence was searched and her phone was confiscated. She resorted to a delaying tactic. 3 days after her showdown with the FBI, she fled the United States by plane and returned to her motherland. Her story was unknown to the public initially. In 2018, however, when the young Congressman Eric Swalwell announced that he would run for the president in 2020, the Republican Party dug up her past romantic relationship. The Republican Party dug up his past romantic relationship with Fang Fang and made it public, and the media hyped it up. Fang Fang thus became a meme in American politics. If you search Chinese female spy on Google, you will immediately find a bunch of posts about Fang Fang or Fang Fang. Fang Fang went to the United States with dreams. Her beauty and spirit made her feel right at home there. But in the end, her dreams were shattered. She told me that when the FBI asked her how she felt about the changes, she couldn't help but cried and replied, in quote, "I had dreams about America. I worked hard here. I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't expect you would treat me like this. America is not the country I had imagined." If she had succumbed to the FBI at that time, accepted U.S. citizenship and $1 million, and henceforth served American national interests, Fang Fang might have, after some initial trials and tribulations, eventually become one of the top Chinese figures in the U.S. She might even become someone like Elaine Chao. Elaine Chao, he mentioned here. But she chose to escape from the United States, which became the evidence that the American public used to conclude that she was a Chinese spy. Of course, the Chinese spy was in quotes. From then on, she couldn't wash herself clean, even if she jumped into the Yellow River. Regarding her decisive decision to escape, she told me, in quote, I just didn't want to betray my motherland. I didn't want to become an American spy. That's my bottom line as a human being. She also said that on the day she went to the airport, she was very worried about being arrested or being detained and had prepared for the worst. She had prepared that she would be imprisoned unjustly in the US and be, in quote, destroyed. After returning to China, Fang Fang has been living an ordinary life or a very plain life. She currently works for an internet company in Shenzhen. Her fascinating experience in the US came to an abrupt end. It was the Americans' shameless betrayal that had shattered the dreams of this wonderful woman. Okay, so that's the end of this article. In the picture that Mr. Hu posted, I don't know if you can actually see the detail. Fan Fan was seen wearing a ring on her left ring finger, so she might have been married or is in a serious relationship now. So, what do you think? What do you think of that post? First of all, this piece has confirmed Fan Fan's relationship with Eric Swalwell and the role she played in Eric Swalwell's campaign, and also her good relations with politicians from California, such as Nancy Pelosi. It also confirmed that she has done much work in influencing American politicians by inviting them to China and planting Chinese interns in Congress. Most importantly, it confirmed that Fan Fan, I kept saying Fan Fan or Fang Fang, was a professional Chinese spy, at least to me. I mean, this writing has confirmed that. So why do I say that? Well, let me come back. Well, the piece talked about how nervous she was when the FBI and CIA approached her. She was scared and fled. This description matched, with Axios' report, which stated that she fled after the FBI started to pay attention on her. And she even prepared herself to be detained at the airport, and she was prepared to serve in American prison. Now, if she wasn't a spy, why was she so nervous, right? Why did she flee? I mean, if she wasn't a spy or involved in espionage and some kind of spy activities, why was she so nervous? She had no reason to flee. So that's one reason. And the second reason is there are two types of Chinese spies. One is professionally trained, and the other is amateur ones. There are not professionally trained spies, but who are helping CCP gathering information. Now, Fang Fang is a professional spy. The school that she attended, as disclosed in this piece, the University of International Relations, is the school that CCP trains spies. The school is directly managed by the Ministry of State Security and is not under the Ministry of Education. In fact, it had been the only school absent or not listed on the list of higher education institutions published by the Ministry of Education until April 2022. So before April 22, it's the only school that's not published on the list of higher education institutions by the Ministry of Education. Now it's it's added. I think the regime changed this to make the school's affiliation with MSS less conspicuous. So everybody knows it's the school that CCP uses to train spies. Now, Fang Fang's 7-year experience as a flight attendant is also very, shall we say, interesting or questionable. It reminds us of another famous Chinese spy, Wendy Dun, the ex-wife of Rupert Murdoch. Now, Dun's relations with Murdoch and his company started on an airplane when Dun sat next to a senior executive working for Murdoch's Star TV in Hong Kong. After a flight, I think it was a long flight from New York to Hong Kong, so it was at least 12 hours. I think it may be 14 or 15 hours. So after a long flight together, Dun got herself a job at Star TV. And this is how she set her foot in Murdoch's media empire. Now, in China, graduates from China's top diplomatic schools, right, such as the University of International Relations. I mean, on the surface, we know it's a spy school, but on the surface, it's the school that train Chinese diplomats. So graduates from China's elite school that trains its diplomats don't aspire to become a flight attendant. Come on, right? So it's very odd that Fang Fang, who graduated from this school, became a flight attendant for 7 years. Well, the only explanation that would explain this is that this career path was not a choice by her. It's, of course, arranged because CCP has been using flight attendants in the first class and business class, of course, to get close to key foreign VIPs. Think about it. Beijing has advanced information about their travel itineraries, and a certain flight attendant with special training will be assigned to that VIP. And especially during long haul flights for over 14, 15 hours, how could a VIP, resist the charm of a professionally trained spy? But anyways, so these are my assessment of Fang Fang. I think based on this piece, there's also so much information about her that we learned now. So now you may say, well, how do you know that the information disclosed in this piece is true? Well, I think it's true. I mean, some of it may be made up, but even though I think somebody argued that the FBI would not reach out to Fang Fang to ask her to be a spy because FBI is not the agency that has spies. Anyways, I'm not going to argue about these details. I think for the bulk part, the information released in this article is true, or for the most part, it's accurate. It might have some details that's embellished, but for the most part, it's true. And I'll give you the reason at the end of this discussion. So now the question: why does the CCP want to publish an article now to confirm Fang Fang's spy status? Right? Well, this comes back to the very first statement I made at the beginning, which is that the U.S. and China are actively engaged in a counterintelligence and counter-espionage spy war against each other. The United States is trying everything it can to minimize the risks posed by Chinese intelligence operations, and has been arresting and prosecuting Chinese agents in the US. So on Wednesday, March 7th, a Google software, do I have pictures? I do have pictures. Hold on, where are my pictures? Let me, here we go. So on Wednesday, March 7th, about a week ago, a little more than a week ago, a Google software engineer who specializes in AI, his name is Ding Ling Wei, was arrested at home in California. He faces 4 counts of federal charges of stealing trade secrets. Here is a picture taken from a presentation he made in China. His slide basically said that he is experienced in Google's powerful algorithm, and he can copy Google's algorithm or platform, whatever computational platform or algorithms, or computational whatever. How do you translate that? The technology that Google has, right? It wants to copy. He has the ability to copy that and elevate that, and to create something similar that suits the Chinese. That he wants to build something with Chinese characteristics that suits the Chinese situation. So this man was arrested on March 7th. And then a week before that, on February the 29th, FBI searched the residences of Winnie Greco, shown here with NYC, New York City's mayor, Eric Adams. Winnie Greco's Chinese name is Zheng Qirong. She is affiliated with the CCP's infamous United Front Work Department, and her company in New York, or in the U.S., received funding from Beijing municipal government's propaganda department. She is paid $100,000 a year to be Eric Adams' special advisor. So she's paid by American taxpayers' money, but she also serves as an advisor to CCP's state media, the Fujian Daily. Over the decades, she arranged many trips for Adams and other New York politicians to visit China. Adams has taken 6 trips to China, including a visit to the United Front Work Department's Chinese People's Association for Friendship, which is designated by the U.S. government as a CCP influence operation. The website of one of Winnie Greco's organizations publicly stated that her work has received great attention and support from the Chinese government, the National People's Congress of China, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the China Friendship Association, and the Consulate General of China in New York. The FBI searched her 2 residences and also a commercial center in Flushing, New York, where she worked. Now, the above 2 individuals are amateur spies for China, working for the CCP. The next case is a professional spy. On January 30th of this year, the arrest of one of the Chinese spies wanted by the FBI became the subject of discussion in the Chinese communities. Although the FBI hasn't confirmed her arrest. So her name is Ye Yanqing. She is a PLA lieutenant accused of engaging in espionage activities for the Chinese government while studying or doing research at Boston University. She has been wanted by the FBI since 2020. She was involved in the case with Charles Lieber, the Harvard professor, who was part of China's Thousand Talent Plan, and who was convicted more than a year ago for fraud and for making false statements by a federal jury. Now, CCP's infiltration in the U.S. has been very concerning. So, also last week, the U.S. the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer from Kentucky sent requests to 9 government agencies seeking information on the steps taken to mitigate any potential infiltration campaigns by the CCP in the U.S. The agencies he reached out include the Justice Department, the Department of Agriculture, EPA, Drug Enforcement Agency, U.S. Agency for Global Media, Treasury Department, NASA, Federal Energy Regulation Commission, and National Science Foundation. Comer plans to reach out to additional government agencies and convene hearings on efforts within these federal government within the federal government to undercut CCP's influence operations in the U.S. You see, the U.S. is going all out to dismantle CCP's influence in the U.S., and this has created a problem for the CCP. Its agents planted in the West are under a lot of pressure. Some are less cooperative than before. Some may even be recruited by Western intelligence operations to be double agents. And this certainly worries Beijing. CCP's typical way of handling this type of situation is a two-pronged approach, or you could say a carrot and stick approach. On the one hand, it wants to issue a stern warning or a stick warning by severely punishing one of them. And the most famous case, or the most famous, or the most illustrative example is the heavy-handed sentencing of Australian Chinese writer Yang Hengjun, who worked for CCP intelligence operations. Yang was given a suspended death sentence, I think it was last month, for being a double agent. On the other hand, Beijing must establish a positive example to offer a carrot to its intelligence operatives. And this is where Miss Fang Fang came handy. This is why the post that Hu Xijin wrote after lunch with Fang Fang emphasized how she loved her motherland and how she refused to be an American spy. Beijing must use a real spy in the example, right? Because it cannot, the entire narrative is to serve as a good example for other Chinese spies. So it must use a real spy case in the narrative. And so that's why I think a lot of the details about Fang Fang is true, is accurate. Because if it's not, then other spies think, well, this is not relevant. So that's why a lot of the details shared in that post about Miss Fang Fang is true. So Beijing wants to use Fang Fang's story to serve as sort of a positive encouragement, in addition to a severe stick warning, to encourage its spies to stay loyal to the CCP or to the motherland. By using Fang Fang's story, it's risk-free for Beijing because she has already been identified by the Americans, right? Beijing, think about it. Beijing must use a real spy in the story, and they cannot use other spies. It can only use a spy that has already been known to the American public. Like the Post said, Fang Fang is widely known in the US, but few people in China know about her. And she thus became the best choice for Beijing as a good example to warn other CCP spies. So I must say, even though CCP's influence operation and spy network may not function as well as before, because it's like for the reasons I explained, do not underestimate their effects and their penetration in the West, because the CCP has been building those networks and those operations for decades, and the United States and its allies have just started to pay attention and try to dismantle them. Americans have no time to waste. And I'll give you another example to show how much influence the CCP has in the US. despite everything that has been going on. Now, let me show you a picture. Hold on, let me see where am I? So this young woman, her name is Teresa Du. She was born in Texas, and she was the tour manager of one of Shenyun Performing Arts touring companies. Now, Shenyun's tagline is "See China Before Communism." The company is banned in China because many of its artists practice Falun Gong, which is a Buddhist school mind and body practice that has been persecuted by the CCP for decades. Now, Ms. Du's company finished a tour in Europe and returned to Chicago for performances in Richmond, Illinois. At O'Hare International Airport, she was questioned by a border control agent about Shenyun and Falun Gong. Ms. Du said that when the officer checked her American passport, he spoke to her in Chinese, and this made Ms. Du very uncomfortable. So she switched back to speaking English to him. The customs officer then asked her, "Are you funded by Falun Gong?" Ms. Du found the question odd and refused to answer. The agent spoke English with a Chinese accent and told nearby officers that they are Falun Gong. They engage in politics, or they are political, and they are illegal. He allowed her to pass through customs, but talked to his supervisor in an attempt to stop Ms. Du and her group from entering the U.S. So two agents tried to block Ms. Du from leaving. Now, in the end, the supervisor let Ms. Du and her group leave, so they were able to enter the U.S. Now, think about it. Ms. Du was a natural-born American. This is, an American border control officer, probably originally from China, espousing CCP propaganda and carrying out CCP directives in the U.S., trying to stop an American from returning home is very, very troubling. Now, I think he isn't alone. There are many others out there. And it's not just the US. Other Western countries have the same problem. That's what I think the US should ban WeChat in the US ASAP. I know last week the Congress passed passed a bill that would allow the United States government to ban TikTok. I think the US should ban WeChat ASAP because the CCP controls the Chinese communities, or is able to communicate with its spy or influence operations through WeChat. WeChat is a very important tool for the CCP to use to be in contact with its operations across the world. And so the most effective way for foreign governments to counter intelligence operations, or to counter CCP intelligence operations, is to ban WeChat immediately. It's the most cost-effective way to do it. Donald Trump issued an order to ban it a few years ago. I don't understand why it's not banned in the US. I don't understand the American politics, but from my perspective, if the American government is serious about countering Chinese intelligence operations in the US, it should ban WeChat effectively. So that's all I will say about this spy war going on between U.S. and China, and Miss Fang Fang inadvertently playing a role again in this spy war. So I hope this information is helpful to you. Okay, let me see if people have questions for me. I'll go through the super chat questions first. From Intrepid Soul. Hi, Lei. Follow up. Kissinger met with Premier Zhou Enlai in 1971. He wanted to depopulate the earth. Could he have promoted the one-child policy? He might have. It would be hard for us to know. if you look at the timing, it does seem to make sense because a few years later, the CCP started to enforce the one-child policy. It was uh, in the late 70s, right? So the timing seems to suggest it, but although it's hard for us to know, all I can say is it might seem coincidental, but it's hard to prove that. Um, oh, that seems to be all. So, Jason Teddy, good morning, Lei. How are you? I'm doing well. Still a little, still have jet lag. I've been sleeping at random hours, but for the most part, I feel well. I feel great coming back. And I hope everyone has watched my video from last night. My video about the trip to Vietnam. It's someone left me a comment saying that it's my best video ever made. I think it was certainly different because it took me a week to make that video because it captured so many footages. I mean, footages of me in different parts of Vietnam. So it took me the longest time to make. So let's see. From Jason Teddy, like they can certainly lose their subcontractors license because of too many safety violations and infractions, and the main body umbrella contractor could lose theirs too. What do you mean by subcontractors? All right. Someone said best wishes from Germany, Coco Zamis. Thank you. I have a lot of European subscribers today because of the time, right? It's still early. In the US, it's morning. It's still early in California. I know in Australia, it's the middle of the night. So a lot of my European viewers are able to join morning sessions. So, well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Coco. Somebody said China simply couldn't leave the US alone. You're right. It has designated the United States as its number one opponent because its goal is to take over the world. It has always been the CCP's ambition to do that. Let's see. G time. Lei, for some reasons, the CCP wants to pass the buck on the one-child policy that they enforced. Anyone can make a suggestion. Well, they realize the population is fast declining. The birth rate is, pathetically low. Although I think the low birth rate is the result of not just the one-child policy, but also high fatality rate during the pandemic in the past 3 years. So it's a combination of several problems, but the birth rate is extremely low, and young people are not interested in starting a family because of the economic conditions. Uh, Tim Tan Reddy, like your Vietnam video views and comments. How are you funded to produce your videos? How am I funded? Well, YouTube advertisement revenue, which hasn't been a whole lot. I think the revenue earnings from YouTube is not as great as a few years ago, and also contributions from viewers like you. So it hasn't been. I mean, the income from YouTube um, and my fans makes a very basic living, to be honest with you. But I work very hard. I work very hard. People suggest that I start a membership to make more money, but I hesitate to do that because because once you start a membership, you have to make, membership only videos, and the views on those videos aren't very high. So my goal is to produce high quality videos, make them free to be viewed for all. And those of you who have the financial means to make a contribution, I certainly encourage you to do that. But I don't want to make it membership. Uh, yeah, I think it's just, I'll make good content as much as I can. And those of you who have the means to support me are encouraged to do so. But I don't want to make it, I don't want to make the financial obligations between me and my viewers a serious matter for us to be concerned with. So that has been my approach so far. Um, yeah, but I live modestly, so I don't really require a lot of finances, uh, but I do need to pay my bills. Okay, G time. Lei, I also noticed while you were in Vietnam, your internet connection would spike when even you talked about CCP or named Xi Jinping. What do you mean would spike? You mean the connection became affected? Well, I didn't have very good internet when I was on the road because it's all dependent on the internet speed of the hotel that I stayed in. So that could be the reason. Um, uh, Westchester Observers Group would appreciate if you can make a presentation on the major policy errors of the CCP in a timeline, showing their impact in today's economic situation in China. Well, do we need to make a videos on that? I mean, there aren't anything that I mean, policy errors. Is there any policy that they made that was not errors? I mean, there were errors one way or the other. Either there were errors for its people, like the one child policy, like zero COVID, like those extreme lockdowns, or there are errors um, for the outside world. So I don't think the CCP has made any policies that are benign to its people and the outside world, if you ask me. Name me one policy that the CCP made that's good for its people and the outside world. Can anyone think of something? One policy that's good for both the Chinese people and the world. Is there anyone? I cannot think of one. And so that's why it's hard to make that video. All right, Sam's on. How can recognize spion? How do you say that word? Can you talk a simple rules? Spion. What's a spion? Is that a short word for something? Okay. Silent is gold. Among the honorable politicians and doctors, there are now ambassadors and officials. I'm not quite sure what that. Espionage. Okay. Spy. Oh, okay. Espionage. Okay. All right. I got the word. How can you tell? How can you tell? How can you recognize a spy? One. Okay. For Chinese, Fang Fang. This is according to the Axial report, and it reported that she had sex with an American mayor in a car, and when the man asked her why she was interested in him, she replied, "I want to learn English with you." So this is one of the typical lines that they drop when a Chinese female approach a Western man, that they want to learn English. So that's one cue. The other signs, they seem to make an extraordinary effort to please you, to make you like them, or to gain your trust. They don't appear to be sincere. There's something about, they seem to they go out of their way to make you like them or to make you trust them. And that's, or they're too perfect. They're too perfect in what they do. You're like, oh, I met this most amazing woman who's like a soulmate to me. And she knows so much about you, and uh she does everything she can to make you happy. And then that raises a red flag. um so, well, I'm talking in general. I mean, I'm talking about female spies. um I think they also have male spies that are doing the same thing to women. uh so I think the same rules apply to uh Western women who encountered men who could be spies. Anyways, so the same rule applies. Um, okay, well, Casmira Flanagan, Kelly Wong was appointed to the CA election committee in January, a non-citizen. So this is in California. This is a local official in California. I'm not familiar, but I do think that the CCP has so much influence in California. It's California, New York. These are the major battlegrounds with the CCP in the U.S. Um, okay, I think that's all. Oh, here's a question from G Time. Lei reminds me of the Navy sub officer married to a CCP agent and sold secrets of nuclear sub operations. Oh, really? Who was she? I didn't know of that. Well, that must be that's an interesting observation. I don't know where you got that from. Navy sub officer married to a CCP agent and sold secrets. So you're saying that this Navy officer sold secrets of nuclear sub operations to the Chinese? And I remind you of that? Wow, that's quite an imagination that you have. From China with love. All right. Okay. All right. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.